everyone, my name is Sarah and today I am doing my October reading wrap up. Let me just freak out for a second that it's October and we're almost at the end of the year. Wait, it's November now. How has that happened? Oh my god! I turned 21 this month. 21 years of my life. Wow. Just gonna let that sink in for a moment. Whew. Love that existential dread. But I had a really great reading month during October. I read one of my favorite books of 2019. Oh my god, I loved it so much and I cannot wait to talk about it. And I really enjoyed the other books I read as well. Last month I managed to read a total of 8 books, 6 of which were physical books and 2 of which were audio books. And yeah, let's dive into it. The first book I read was Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a reread because I was super excited to read Wayward Son and I wanted to remember in full detail every single fact about Carry On. I mean, I could have read a summary, but I didn't. I took the long way around, okay? I love this series so much. I loved Carry On when I read it when it first came out. It feels like years ago now. And I, of course, loved Wayward Son as well, but we're talking about Carry On right now, okay? If you don't know, Carry On is basically dubbed as like the Harry Potter fanfic novel of the YA community, and that's pretty true, but it's phenomenal. It's similar to Harry Potter in some aspects, but it's also completely different. This book started off as like the fanfic that you read about in Fangirl, which is another Rainbow Rowell novel. Highly recommend if you haven't read it. If you haven't read it, where have you been for like the past 10 years? That is the OG YA novel. This book is just so much fun. The humor is on point. All like the talk about the spells and like the various monsters that exist. You can really like pinpoint various aspects to Harry Potter. So if you love Harry Potter but you want to try something a little bit new, a little bit fresher, definitely give Carry On a go and then pick up the second book because it will blow your mind. So speaking of Carry On, the second book I read this month was of course Wayward Son by my new queen, Rainbow Rowell. This book takes the place for my favorite read of October. It was amazing. Oh my god. I knew that I was gonna love it because of course I loved Carry On, but I loved Wayward Son even more and I didn't think that was possible. In the first half they're taking a road trip through America because they think one of their friends is in danger and it's just really funny. Probably one of my favorite scenes in this entire novel, and this is not a spoiler, but Baz is just basically swearing at the sun and I'm like, can relate. Oh, the joys of having pale skin. And I mean, look at that cover and look at Baz's gorgeous floral suit. Oh my god, I die. I really want an outfit like that, but I could never pull it off. So Wayward Son is basically what happens in the aftermath of Simon defeating this villain that he's been fighting all throughout his teenage years. He's in a massive slump. I mean, I would feel the same way if I defeated some supervillain that had been like traumatizing me for my entire childhood. Then what would I do? I would feel like I've got nothing left to accomplish. That is what Simon is going through. Then he and Baz and Penelope go on a trip to America because they think Agatha is in trouble, and what they find there is what they least expect. I just loved this book so much. It was so much fun. I listened to the audio and that was a really fun experience. Go pick it up. The next book I read in October was Save the Cat, which I listened to on audio, and it is a book all about how to be a good screenwriter. If you don't know, for the past 10 weeks I've been attending a screenwriting course, which is really interesting. I'm gonna do screenwriting next year and it was really great to kind of delve into everything and like the mechanics of screenwriting in this course, and then have it all kind of summed up in a 6-hour book. If you're interested in screenwriting, this is a must read. It lays out all the beats of the story and how to kind of determine what genre your story is and what platform it's best for, and even how to pitch. It is amazing. So yeah, now I write novels and screenplays. It's pretty cool. The next book I read was The End and Other Beginnings by Veronica Roth, which is a short story collection full of speculative fiction stories. This was a total surprise to me. I received this book in the mail and I didn't even know it existed, but I was excited. I loved Veronica's Divergent series. Wasn't a massive fan of Carve the Mark, but I was willing to give this book a go, and thankfully I really enjoyed it. I am a massive fan of short story collections. I absolutely love them. I've read some witchy ones and some horror ones, and of course the Love Oz YA anthology and the Queer Oz anthology. So yeah, I was excited to give this book a go. The first story was by far my favorite. I think that was a really great one to start on. It was really beautifully written. I adored it. There were a couple in here that I didn't like quite as much and that I kind of brushed over because I couldn't get into, but the vast majority I did enjoy, and I feel like that's the case for a lot of anthologies. If you're a fan of Veronica's previous work, or you're just looking for a couple like sci-fi spec fic short stories, you should definitely pick this one up. Next up, I read The Boundless Sublime by Lily Wilkinson. I was so excited to get this book. My friend Lucy lent me this copy and I have been meaning to read it ever since it was released, but I just never got around to it, and finally I read it. I recently watched the film Midsummer, and that is a film about cults, and it's super creepy and it made me feel physically sick the entire time I was watching that film. But after it, I couldn't stop talking about it, and I'm like, I need more cult content in my life. So Lucy was like, have you tried this book? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but I've been meaning to. And oh my god, it was incredible. Seriously, this is definitely one of my favorite Lily books. I also loved After the Lights Go Out, but The Boundless Sublime is just super creepy and super cultish, and I love it so much for that. It's basically a book about a girl named Ruby who is going through a grieving period, and then she meets this cute guy and she wants to kind of get to know him. When she gets invited around to his house, she kind of discovers that he is in a cult. And it's not great. She doesn't really think that she'll be roped into it or whatever because she's really liking spending time with this guy, but the more time she spends with him and his weird cult family, the more she kind of feels like maybe that's the path she's meant to follow. So she goes to live with this cult, but soon really creepy stuff starts to happen and she starts to wonder if she might die there. So fun stuff. I absolutely flew through this one in like 24 hours, and if you're looking for a little spooky read even after Halloween has finished, or you're obsessed with cults and find them really fascinating like I do, then you should definitely pick up this novel. Another book I read in October was The Bone Houses, which I did listen to on audio. I was excited to pick up this novel firstly because of that gorgeous cover. I mean, yes, even though I don't own it, I can still appreciate it on my phone, okay? Totally legit. But also because it was leading up to Halloween and I wanted something a little bit spooky to listen to. This is a book about a girl who kind of lives in this creepy town where there are things called bone houses, which are basically zombies that live in the forest. I found the first quarter of this novel kind of hard to get into. It felt a bit slow at times and I didn't really know where the story was going. But about at the 1/3 to 1/2 way mark, I started loving it. I really got into the narration style and I loved her and her friend kind of walking through the forest and all the creepy things that happened and kind of discovering more about the bone houses. I thought that was really well done. Overall, this is a really atmospheric, creepy read and I just loved reading it around Halloween. The second to last book I read in October was These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I have been meaning to read this book for months, ever since it was released. I pre-ordered this book and I've only just got around to reading it. Typical. This is a book about a girl named Hannah who is a witch living in Salem, and there's like a whole coven of witches living there, but one day she sees a blood ritual going on and she realizes that there must be a blood witch in town and no one is safe. I loved how this book is about witches, but it's set in a world that I recognize. It's basically urban fantasy, and those are my favorite types of books. But undeniably, my favorite thing about this novel was the queer romance. It's got pretty much a fully queer cast, which is really great, and I was just so here for that romance. It was super cute and I just wanted them to all be happy, and oh, this book just warmed my heart. If you're a fan of queer and witchy books, you should definitely add this one to your TBR. You will not be disappointed. And finally, the last book I read in October was Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. I know, I hadn't read it before now, and I feel like the worst bookworm ever. By now, you've all probably seen the sneak peek trailer for the series that's coming out with, I believe, HBO real soon. I think it's coming out early November, and I am so excited to watch it. It's called His Dark Materials, and I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna watch it somehow, okay? I don't have Foxtel, but it's gonna happen. I do remember watching the film The Golden Compass way back when it was released when I was like 12 or something, and I quite enjoyed it back then, but everyone that I know that read the books and watched the movie absolutely hated it. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Nicole Kidman, and I was pretty traumatized with that scene with Lyra and Pantalaimon. You know what scene I'm talking about. That was, as a kid watching that scene, I still remember it. I haven't gotten over it. So I decided to get a head start on the series so I can read the first book this month and then the next two next month. And I did quite enjoy it. It was different to what I was expecting. It did feel really slow at parts. I get that this book was written like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. I don't know, 25? Let's go with 25. But yeah, there was a lot of parts where nothing felt like it was happening, and the language that was used, I don't know if I read this when I was 12, I would really understand what was going on. I think I would have DNF'd this book as a middle grade reader, and I think that's kind of the market that it's geared towards. Probably just because the writing style has changed so dramatically and that we all expect really super fast-paced books. But Northern Lights does take it a bit slower, especially in the early stages. That being said, I still really enjoyed it. I loved getting to learn more about the various aspects that I didn't really know much about from the film, and I love Pantalaimon. He's my favorite character, and Lyra is just a little badass. I love her. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the next two books and then going on to read like Book of Dust and all of that. So yeah, these are all the books I read during October. I really enjoyed the majority of them. I felt like I had a really great reading month. If you've read any of these, do let me know what you thought of them down below in the comments because I would love to chat with you. But that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye everyone!